Good morning, lords and ladies, and welcome back to A Morning with the Lord. I'm your friendly Lord, Daniel Duffield, and today is the 23rd of the 10th, 2021, and it's a Saturday today, so there hasn't been an overly great influx of new news stories overnight. We got one here from a day ago, Channel 9, something to do with the surge of cases in Victoria. So, not an overly long video, so let's see what's going on in Victoria. You can't see the video, obviously, but they ended that on 12 deaths, and the chick had a little bit too big of a smile on her face. And then we just cut straight into happy, like, we've hit 70%, I'm so proud. On your dad. Oh, wasn't it? Wasn't it just fucking great? The stroke of midnight. Did they really go out on midnight? See, look at this. Like, again, you can't see the video, but this is almost like watching the start of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original one, the good one. Because they've just shown, like, rows of beer kegs getting, like, down the production line and heaps of nice cakes and restaurants and all this sort of stuff. It's like, look what you get now, because you've been so good. The 12 deaths, fucking, when one was enough to go into lockdown. What's the point of that? Like, I totally, like, this has been something that has, like, rubbed me the wrong way since the very beginning, because, like, they still send kids to school, and, like, the whole point was kids were either, if they got it, they weren't meant to be affected by it, like their immune system was supposed to kick it easily, sort of thing. So there was no issue in sending the kids to school, which is just fucking daft. I mean, like, they still call kids carriers. We're trying to stop the spread, but it's alright if kids go to school and get it. Like, to me, that was just everyone kicking up a stink because they couldn't handle their fucking kids at a long period of time and they needed them to go to school. I just want a break. Fuck off. Yeah, like this, this is what just rings bullshit, like, and the government signs off on it. Meant to be stopping the spread. Anyone, like, if you fucking say, oh, one person dies, it's not the worst thing. You're considered a fucking monster. We have to lock down for the fear of one person fucking dying, but, we'll still send the fucking kids to school. We couldn't do it at home because we didn't pass fucking maths ourselves. Yeah, most schools have fucking text messages and shit all set up now. Facebook pages. Oh, we're going into the Cleo Smith story, which seems to be unfolding in the most tragic of circumstances. We're all aware of this tragedy here in Australia. Still, once again, even though I'm skipping over the story because we've gone over it before, please, if anyone in WA, do not remember the region, but has any information, knows anything, please contact authorities because, you know, we don't want that sort of stuff happening. If we can find this girl, let's do it. Alright, Mal. I'm going to do something a wee bit different today, seeing as it's the weekend and a slow news weekend at that. I'm going to talk about some local news here. Let me just find it. So I live in Tenterfield, New South Wales, and most of rural Australia has, for a very long bloody time, been losing our facilities like aged care workers and hospitals, and that sort of thing has just been dropping every year. More funding gets cut, hospitals get smaller, staffs get smaller, there's less and less doctors, and we're slowly really just becoming like terrible. There's no faith in the healthcare system, or very little. Uh, yeah, you know, you see the frustration everywhere. Like I've said before, most of my family are nurses, and you know, they just see this all the time, and obviously get frustrated. See, I'm not a medical worker, and I have a lot of trouble when I have been in hospital. Like I've been chucked out of hospital, literally throwing up, unable to move in the waiting room, like just absolutely dreadfully sick. After they gave me medicine which made me overdose because I'd already taken too much paracetamol before I got there, type of thing. And they just kicked me out. I had to literally crawl my way home and like sleep on the side of the road for a while until I could fucking wasn't ill enough to move again. You like, and this was in Perth. Like, this wasn't in a rural hospital. This was a fucking city hospital, and they couldn't even. Like, they just chucked me out on the street. And it's absolutely disgusting. But this is what happens when hospitals just are fucked. Okay, now what I wanted to go into here. Why is this coming up? Someone sent me a link to a report about childcare. Oh wait, no, I clicked on the wrong one. Here we go. Here we go. Not childcare, aged care. Is it going to load? I don't think it's going to load. Oh my god, have they taken it down? Can I not fucking get into it? Notice board. Oh, what? Okay, I think this might not even. Oh, no, I downloaded. Okay, very sorry for that. I'm just trying to work out what we're doing here. Trying to get my computer to work. Anyway, right, aged care. I have a report done by the government on an aged care facility here in Tenterfield. Now, I'm not going to name any names. This is public knowledge now. It is out for the public eye as far as I am aware. So I should be safe to talk about it, but I'm still not going to name the the aged care facility or anything. But there's a compliancy report here, right? Overall assessment of this service. Okay. Standard 1, consumer dignity and choice, non-compliant. Because they were compliant on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 requirements of that certain bit, but not the first requirement. We will go into this more. I'm just giving you a little overview of how bad we sort of are. Ongoing assessment and planning with consumers, non-compliant. Standard 3, personal care and clinical care, non-compliant, which is probably the most important one. But they are non-compliant in 4 counts, and there's only 3 which they are compliant in. When it comes to services and support of daily living, they are compliant. Standard 5, organisation service environment, non-compliant. Standard 6, feedback complaints, non-compliant. Standard 7, human resources, non-compliant. Standard 8, organisational governance, non-compliant. Like this is a damning report on where our aged people are living, and like this is a what they call it, a retirement town. The majority of our population is aged and going into aged care, and this is a sort of my apologies there might be a little gap. I just had someone come to the door, but we shall continue here. So right, yeah, we are non-compliant. This is an absolutely damning assessment. Let's get into what's actually wrong with this nursing home. Standard 1, consumer dignity and choice, non-compliant. Where are we here? This is a fairly in-depth report, so I'm going to try and skim over a lot of it. I'll be here for hours if I'm reading out the entire report. But the assessment 1 standard here, I'll just start with the first paragraph. Should be a brief overline. Consumers considered that they were encouraged to do things for themselves, and staff understood their needs, preferences, and what is important to them. Consumers felt they could make informed choices about their care and services and were supported to take risks to live the life they chose. Okay, staff were able to explain the process. Consumer care planning documents reflected assessments and care plans. Police standards assessed as non-compliant as one of the 6 specific requirements has been assessed as non-compliant. Right, so that one's like not the worst, but it's still non-compliant. Assessment of standard 1 requirements. Each consumer is treated with dignity and respect, with their identity, culture, and diversity valued. In coming to a decision on compliance for this requirement, I have considered the information brought forward by the assessment team and the written response from the approved provider. 2 named consumers and 1 consumer representative reported in various ways of a named care staff member who was verbally aggressive, and their interactions in their interactions with consumers, spoke rudely and in a disrespectful manner to them and other consumers, and who could be rough when providing care. That's exactly what you don't want in aged care. This is a hard thing for nurses because you have to disconnect in a certain way. And it's hard for a person to do that. We're not all we're not all bloody Buddhas completely in control of our emotions. This sort of thing does happen, and especially with nurses. They get coarse and rough, and a little bit uncaring. But it doesn't mean that doesn't mean you let it go. Whenever you see an issue, we can all become angry in our day to day. But it's still upon us to realize when we're doing that and change our way. Like, you can't just be angry because you feel like being angry. You can't go and take abuse out on someone just because you're in, a bad mood. That's how society works. Let's go to the next, standard 2, non-compliant. Let's go down here to the non-compliant part. Assessment and planning, including consideration of risks to the consumer's health and well-being, informs the delivery of safe and effective care and services. The service was unable to demonstrate that initial and ongoing assessment and care planning, including consideration of risk to consumers, was consistently completed. The processes of assessment and care planning to inform safe and effective care and services was incomplete and did not identify the individual risk to consumers. Assessment and care planning processes for consumers with compromised skin integrity who exhibited episodes of challenging behaviours with a history of recurrent infections and/or had a diagnosis of insulin-dependent diabetes were incomplete. The approved provider, in its written response and through the provision of the services plan for continuous improvement, did not disagree with the assessment team's findings and reported on actions that have been completed and that will be completed to address the deficiencies identified. So there's another issue there. They reckon they know about and they're going to get on to it, which isn't really the best news. It's like, oh yeah, no, we know that shit. We're working on it. Alright. Requirement 2.3e, non-compliant. Care and services are reviewed regularly for effectiveness and when circumstances change or when incidents impact on the needs, goals or preferences of the consumer. In coming to a decision on compliance for this requirement, I have considered that the information brought forward by the assessment team and the written response from the approved provider under this and other requirements, blah blah blah, non-compliant. While care and service plans were reviewed by staff, risks to consumers were not consistently identified, and strategies implemented and/or reviewed for effectiveness when circumstances changed or when incidents impacted on the needs, goals, and preferences of consumers. Full stop. The approved provider, in its written response and through the provision of the services plan for continuous improvement, did not disagree with the assessment team's finding. See, once again, we're actually pretty shit at that. We'll do better. Great response. That seems to be just your basic health and safety. Figuring out issues like, if there's bloody cords on the floor, taping them over and that sort of stuff. But that is like day fucking 1. You learn this shit. And see, like, here in Tenterfield, we keep hearing, nurses have just been dropping like crazy, quitting because they refuse to work under under the conditions, and when you turn around to your boss and go like, this is not right, and the boss just says, well, you got to fucking do it, like, this actually happens, people think we have all these checks and balances and like, oh, that couldn't possibly go wrong, like we have rules. Man, I don't know I don't think I've worked in a single place where the rules are followed to the T. Especially the smaller the workforce, you know, and the less eyes you have watching you, people just get away with fucking murder. They do everywhere. Humans are humans, and we are fairly weak-willed beings. And the more and more we go into this bloody mindset of, everybody has right to be all emotionally fucking ridiculous. Like this is the thing. Like phone etiquette. You know, customer service. It's just disappearing. Like I went to a restaurant here in town the other day, and you know the we were in a very big table. It was like a birthday party, and there were little kids there, and we were in like the restaurant. But the little kids, it was the end of the night, and they were cleaning down the other tables, and the little kids were like running around helping them like clean, talking to them, and they were talking back and being all nice and whatnot. We were having a laugh. But then one of the like young girls, she's come up to me and like she must have thought one of the kids were mine, and she said to me like, "Oh, she may be funny now, but wait till she turns around and tells you to fuck off." And like this is someone who works in the restaurant. Now I don't care who you bloody are. You're at work. You can't even jokingly fucking tell a customer that someone's going to tell them to fuck off. Like, like, how does that go through your mindset and go like, yeah, that's appropriate? Fucking, like you got to rephrase that anyway. Like she got real aggressive with the fuck off, like, as if they were getting frustrated with the kids, and thought they were like mine. And like, I wasn't telling them to get, like, yeah, I don't know. It was just, this seems to be happening, like everywhere, I am genuinely shocked and honestly makes me want to spend money when I walk into a store and someone's bloody nice. The only stores I know of where this happens is EB Games or Zing. Not all the Zing. Zing's like a little bit more temperamental. But like most EB Games, people are cool. And the other place is Games Workshop for Warhammer. And now they almost go the other way. They're almost way too positive when you go in there. Sometimes you just want to like look at stuff, and they're like, "Oh, mate, how you going? Like, what models do you paint?" Well, Warhammer's a game, for those who don't know, a tabletop modelling game that I used to enjoy doing. Yeah. Yeah, it's just and this health and safety stuff that we were talking about before. This is day one learning. Like the first thing you have to learn is the health and safety rules and everything of a new workplace when you start there. And this is the thing, like most people should be, the first thing to go through your mind, especially in healthcare. But anyway, standard 3: personal care and clinical care non-compliant. Let's go down here and look at the non-compliance. Each consumer gets safe and effective personal care, clinical care, or both personal care and clinical care. That 1 is best practice, 2 is tailored to their needs, and 3 optimizes their health and well-being. Consumer representatives were satisfied they received care that was safe and right for them and that met their needs and preferences. However, reviewed consumers' care documentation did not demonstrate consumers were receiving individualized care that was safe, effective, and all tailored to their needs. For a consumer identified as at risk of falling, documented management strategies were not consistently being implemented or monitored by staff. For a consumer identified with pain management needs, care documentation did not evidence that at all pain management strategies had been implemented or monitored for effectiveness. Monitoring of blood glucose levels in relation to diabetic care was not consistently followed by staff in line with medical directives, and or follow-up actions or monitoring were not reported as actioned. See, how can you get that bad? You got one job. Diabetics, make sure they're that shit must be checked. God, imagine if someone died. How can this get so bad? There's another requirement here. Effective management of high impact or high prevalence risks associated with the care of each consumer. In coming to a decision on compliance for this requirement, I have considered the information brought forward by the assessment team in the written response form that approved provider under this and other standards, including standard 2. It's a weird sentence. I'm getting a little thrown off by the language they use here because, I don't know, that was just a strange sentence. It, had no resolution. It was just a statement. High impact, high prevalence risk associates with the care of consumers who require specialised nursing care were not being effectively managed. For 2 named consumers who were identified at risk of falls and who had experienced several falls, documented management strategies were not individualised to their care needs, and post-falls management were not completed as required after each fall. God, it just makes you so angry. These are the people we pay to care for our elderly that we can't be bothered to visit ourselves because we all got to work. There are not many households with fucking only one worker, someone at home looking after everyone. Not even filling out the forms. I mean, God, I worked in a bakery, and you have to fill out bloody everything. Every time you make something, you got a date and sign. These are just rules you got to follow. Otherwise, what the bloody hell are we doing? Is it all a lie? What is reality? Okay, requirement 3D, non-compliant. Deterioration or change of a consumer's mental health, cognitive or physical function, capacity or condition is recognised and responded to in a timely manner. The service did not adequately demonstrate that deterioration or change in a consumer's health status or condition was recognised and responded to appropriately. One consumer reported while they had informed care staff of falls overnight, these incidents were not escalated to the registered nurse or medical officer for further review. Care documentation did not reflect deterioration or change in the consumer's function, capacity or condition was appropriately identified or responded to. For 2 consumers who experienced breathing difficulties, documentation reflected care staff did not escalate the consumer's concerns to registered staff in a timely way. One of these consumers had requested to see the medical officer. Review by the medical officer occurred 10 and 15 days after the consumer's first raised concerns. My fucking God. These people should be strung up. They shouldn't be called nurses. You see, and these are the cunts that'll walk around with their on their high horses, looking down on every other cunt. God, this makes me angry. How fucking dare they? How dare they still be open? How can our system go through, see all these issues, and like, I know for a fact this shit hasn't been fucking properly dealt with yet, and this was months ago. You know, what the fuck are we doing? You go in and get damning reports such as this, everyone should be fucking sacked on the fucking spot and bring in the new fucking staff. This is absolutely fucking disgusting. I can't believe it. Can't believe it. I've had this for a long time and I haven't read through it. I just gave it a brief overlook. Oh, man. It's fucking disgusting. Oh, I could cry. Just no one gives a fuck. Excuse me, language. Alright, let's plow on. Requirement 3E of the same fucking regulation. Information about the consumer's condition, needs and preferences is documented and communicated within the organisation and with others where responsibility for care is shared. For 2 consumers, care documentation did reflect the care needs around scheduled changes in clinical equipment. For 4 consumers, care documentation did not identify their changing needs. In behaviour management, including triggers and strategies, management had reported registered staff lacked knowledge of the service's electronic clinical management system that resulted in shortcomings in consumer care planning and monitoring documentation. The service was unable to provide any documented evidence to verify medical officers' directives were followed or care plan interventions were implemented. Well, that's a pretty bloody convenient fucking excuse, isn't it? He just had a lack of knowledge in our computer. Like, you know, we took no efforts to gain knowledge. We didn't have paper records because we couldn't figure that out. You know, we just thought we'd remember it. You know, she's sweet. Can't. Standard 4, compliant. That one was compliant, apparently. The only one. Standard 5, non-compliant. Organisation service environment. Consumer outcome. I feel I belong and I am safe and comfortable in the organisation's service. Organisation statement. The organisation provides a safe and comfortable service environment that promotes the consumer's independence, function and enjoyment. Okay, requirement 5B, non-compliant, the service environment. 1 is safe, clean, well maintained and comfortable. 2 enables the consumers to move freely both indoors and outdoors. While the service environment was clean and well maintained, management was not able to demonstrate the service provided a consistently safe environment for all consumers. This was in relation to the potential of a fire risk due to the smoking habits of one consumer that smoked in non-designated smoking areas without the assistance or supervision from staff. And 3 consumers reported they felt unsafe in the care of one staff member due to the staff member's inappropriate behaviours and interactions. Well, that's not good. The assessment team brought forward information under this requirement about the 3 consumers who reported they felt unsafe. Due to the staff member's inappropriate behaviour, I have considered this under requirement 13A. Standard 6, non-compliant, feedback and complaints. Consumers, their family, friends, carers and others are encouraged and supported to provide feedback and make complaints. Consumers' representatives advised that they did not feel comfortable, supported or encouraged to provide feedback or make complaints. regarding care delivery and staffing. 4 consumers and representatives advised that they had complained previously to management and felt their concerns were not taken seriously. 2 named consumers expressed concern around providing complaints regarding care provided by and interactions with a care staff member. 3 representatives explained they were not comfortable in raising complaints at the service due to concerns that their family members' care would be negatively impacted. Staff advised they were discouraged or instructed to not document complaints in consumer records. Instead, they were to verbally inform clinical management of the complaint for investigation and follow-up. One staff member reported of a complaint they submitted in July 2020 on behalf of a verbal complaint made by a named consumer. However, this complaint had not been logged or addressed in the service's complaint register. This is another thing that's becoming extremely prevalent in today's world, is the lack of complaint handling. Now, nursing is a much more serious deal. Like, that's ridiculous. But I think that comes from the same place, is because no one thinks they're doing a bad job. Everyone knows when they're being lazy, but will justify whatever their actions are in their own head. So no one wants to hear complaints, and complaints look bad, seeing as we have all these computer systems. Any complaint generally logged on a system will be there to see, by higher ups connected to the system, and that sort of thing. They might get notifications, and that will ring bad. That'll bring investigation, which people doing the wrong thing don't want. So anytime you're told, don't put in formal complaints, just verbally let us know and we'll deal with it, is when you know things are starting to turn to shit. And you get this, that's why you can't, you don't ring complaints anymore. You got to send them in. You can't actually talk to someone and go, oi, and get them to log this down. People don't have complaint sections. People paid to deal with that much anymore. It's just, we're very sorry to hear about your trouble with us, blah, 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 and we've already signed off any rights to be able to complain, probably in user agreements anyway. Yeah, it's a troubling thing. Requirement 6.3b, non-compliant. Consumers are made aware and have access to advocates, language services, and other methods of raising and resolving complaints. Well, obviously that's going to be non-compliant if they're not even able to put it in properly. It also says here, staff did not demonstrate a consistent awareness of the advocacy and language services available. Staff advised they had not been provided training or received information regarding external feedback channels or how to use them, which we were saying before, it's pretty convenient. But of course, if this is one thing. When you think about just the day-to-day runnings of any sort of workplace, so you put on a young team to wash dishes and do that sort of thing. You're not going to train them to do the till until, they've shown competency in one task and are ready to learn another. So, I can understand, and plus, timing's a thing too. You can't dedicate a teacher and, the student to learning tasks that aren't relevant to the day at hand. These sort of things unfold over a certain amount of time, but anyone who's been in a place for over a month should be well aware of things like how to deal with consumer complaints and how to use the computer systems, and and if you don't, you should someone should be, it shouldn't be an issue to call someone over and get them to do it for you. When it comes to language services, if you've got a patient that you can't understand, that should be the first thing goes through your head, and then the question should come up, how do we deal with this? Sometimes, I always say you got to punch up. Management is responsible for a certain amount of things, but at the same time, we all have to take some agency in our own actions. Right, requirement 6.3c, non-compliant. Appropriate action is taken in response to complaints and an open disclosure process is used when things go wrong. Well, that's obviously not going to be compliant. Requirement 6D, non-compliant. Feedback and complaints are reviewed and used to improve the quality and care. Obviously not going to be compliant. Okay, standard 7, human resources, non-compliant. Requirement 7.3a. The workforce is planned to enable, and the number and mix of members of the workforce deployed enables the delivery and management of safe and quality care and services. This is most likely going to be some sort of diversity in the workforce, maybe. Let's read on. The service could not demonstrate how its workforce is planned to enable the delivery and management of safe and quality care and services. Consumers and representatives reported dissatisfaction with the adequacy of numbers of trained staff to provide care and services during the afternoon and evening shifts. This impacted negatively on the timely delivery of care and services for consumers and wait times for visitors wanting to gain access to the service. And I think this harkens back more to funding and that sort of thing. And this is something that worries me too. I was thinking about this in a different respect this morning. If these people aren't able to, this is paid, I assume. It's I'm not sure if it's a government place or they get funding. I'm not sure what the go is there. But if they're, if they have patients and it's working on sort of like a business type thing where your number of patients equals how much staff, money you've got coming in, and you've got to spread everything out through, bills and wages, then if it's getting to a point where it's unsustainable, there's a problem there in the amount that things are costing. Like, they're obviously going to have to put their money up, but it makes me wonder what it is. Like, is rent getting too much, or is it just all getting too much? There's a clear, we're getting a clear divide between the nation's income and cost of things. It's quite troubling. Anyway, let's see. Requirement 7.3d, non-compliant. The workforce is recruited, trained, equipped, and supported to deliver the outcomes required by these standards. Management was not able to demonstrate the workforce is trained and equipped to deliver the outcomes required by these standards. Consumers' representatives stated staff were well trained and had the skill and capability to perform their role, while staff advised the received reminders to complete their mandatory training. Staff were unaware on any additional training provided by the service. Staff stated they had not completed training regarding falls management, clinical deterioration and behaviour management, nor had they been provided with any information and/or education training regarding the newly legislated Serious Incident Response Scheme, or SIRS, which commenced in the 1st of April 2021. And this is another thing that just makes you think, how the bloody hell does this happen? I would imagine this is another time management issue, because they're already short on staff, for the afternoon and evening shifts, as I said before. So how are they throwing more people into training? Even doing a round robin type training where it's only one person off is going to seriously affect your ability to provide care. There's something wrong management-wise in everything that's going on. Alright, requirement 7.3e, non-compliant. Regular assessment, monitoring and review of the performance of each member of the workforce is undertaken. In coming to a decision on compliance for this requirement, I have considered the information brought forward by the assessment team and the written response from the approved provider under this and the other quality standards, including standards 1 and 6. While the service undertook regular formal performance reviews for most of its staff, the lack of ongoing monitoring and review of one named care staff member's performance following allegations of verbal aggression and inappropriate care delivery to consumers reflected the service was not adequately able to demonstrate that the performance of each member of its workforce is monitored and reviewed. Well, that points out a little bit of fucking favoritism there, doesn't it? No wonder how the person who has allegations of verbal aggression and inappropriate care doesn't get reviewed, while the other staff get reviewed regularly. Something wrong there. Typical workplace too. Look, it happens everywhere. Standard 8, non-compliant organisational governance. Now, I'm sure this isn't going to look very good. Requirement 8.3b. The organisation's governing body promotes a culture of safe, inclusive and quality care and services and is accountable for their delivery. Well, not by the sounds of everything we've read. Management provided monthly reports to the board detailing results in relation to incidents, clinical indicators, complaints from external agencies, human resources and staff training, anti-psychotropic medication use, and chemical restraint management, and mandatory reporting. However, reports provided were incorrect and/or incomplete, specifically in relation to complaints made about staff behaviour and reportable incidents which have occurred, but that were not reported or documented. The service had drafted an incident policy to reflect SIRS legislation. However, the service could not demonstrate how they had amended their incident management system in relation to defining roles and responsibilities of staff, informing staff, consumer, families and representatives regarding the changes, and providing education on the incident management system of consumers, staff, management and the board in line with legislation. While the service had provided mandatory training to staff on elder abuse, it could not demonstrate how it had informed staff on new reportable incidents requirements, which encompassed wider scope description of what constituted abuse, including psychological abuse. God, it's terrible, isn't it? Just blatant disregard for anything. I just do what I want. I'm a fucking manager. Requirement 8.3c, non-compliant. Effective organisation, wide governance systems relating to the following: 1. Information management. 2. Continuous improvement. 3. Financial governance. 4. Workforce governance, including the assignment of clear responsibilities and accountabilities. 5. Regular compliance. And 6. Feedback and complaints. While the organisation was able to demonstrate effective information management, continuous improvement and financial governance process, Systems and process relating to management of regulatory compliance, workforce governance, and feedback and complaints were not ineffective. Management were unable to demonstrate how the organisation tracks changes to aged care law and communicates these to the staff, while the service policies had been updated to reflect incident management in line with SIRS legislated requirements on 19th March 2021, the service was unable to demonstrate the change to the incident report process had been implemented, that they had notified all consumers, representatives, and staff, and that staff had received training in relation to the new requirements, as well as their roles and responsibilities. It just blatant disregard. Screw it, she'd be right. Requirement 83D non-compliant. Effective risk management systems and practices including but not limited to the following: 1. Managing high impact or high prevalence risks associated with the care of consumers. 2. Identifying and responding to abuse and neglect of consumers. 3. Supporting consumers to live the best life they can. 4. Managing the preventing incidents, including the use of an incident management system. And the organisation had policies describing how the abuse and neglect of consumers was identified and responded to. However, the organisation was not able to demonstrate an understanding of the changed definition, legislation, and relation to consumer abuse and neglect, and SIRS reporting requirements. This is basically the same thing, saying like a flow on from that neglect of the thing means that no one was bloody trained. And we're almost finished. We're getting down to the last bloody eighth of the report here. The requirement 83E, non-compliant, where clinical care is provided, a clinical governance framework including but not limited to the following: 1. Antimicrobial stewardship. 2. Minimising the use of restraint. And 3. Open disclosure. The assessment team found deficiencies in consumer post-fall management and diabetic management, and the response to clinical incidents had not been effectively identified, monitored, or reviewed to implement corrective changes to address care delivery gaps. And down, so that's basically just going over, what's already been stated. And then at the end here, we have areas for improvement. This is a bullet point list, which is just over a page long. Now, I don't think we need to read over all these because I'm sure you can tell just from listening that there's a lot of room for improvement. This is a report straight from the Australian Government Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. So yeah, it's not very good, is it? And like I said, these issues haven't been addressed. We've lost lots of nurses that just through bullying and harassment from other people there, on making them be compliant with their absolutely below the bar attempt at running that hostel. And these are the people you don't want to lose. Like, we're losing good people for bullies in the workplace because we've implemented this system that just advocates for fucking bullies. You're allowed to, like, and that's human nature. That, like, water falls, whatever that saying is, easiest way down, and bullying's easy. And the hierarchy gets structured pretty quickly when you've just got one person on top pissing on everyone else. Trickle-down economics, trickle-down management system. Except the trickling down isn't the trickle down you want. Maybe a little warm, but smells funky. Anyway, I think that might do for today's morning with the Lord. I hope I hope you might have learned something, at least about the poor stage of Tenterfield. And if you have any elderly members of the family in aged care, go and pay them a visit. Just remind them that there's someone there that they can talk to if things are wrong. Yeah. I hope you're not all as disgusted as I am this morning. And, well, until the next episode of A Morning with the Lord, you will have a lovely day.